All right, so here we're going to be adding texture to our piece. And we need to think about first how your object's going to sit on the table. So I'm just going to tap it on the table to create a flat base. Now it's time to decide what your surface is going to look like. So in this project, we're adding texture, and you should do about 50% of your piece. It could be all over, it could be sections, it could be divided literally in half. Refer back to your inspiration sketches and test tiles. Create more if you need to, but ultimately, no, you don't really have to stick with those designs if you don't want to. The purpose of those activities, you do need to do them, is to get you thinking about surface and exploring your options. Now, if you want a specific design in an area, you can create a guideline with a needle tool or pencil that's lightly on there. You can wipe that away. Now, I'm working at a leather hard stage, kind of the wet leather hard, meaning it's not really sticky anymore, and you can kind of carve it. It's also called a cheese hard stage because it's kind of like the texture of hard cheese where you can shave things down. All right, it's time to add texture. You should have already made a plan. For this piece, I've given myself the parameters of lines and circles, right? That might be helpful to give yourself some creative limits. It's actually really good to give yourself limits because it just kind of helps guide you. Now, I am going to be adding a lot of little pieces, so I do need to score all of them on there. So I need to score and slip each one. And that also means I'm going to have to end up smoothing around all of those pieces. I'll show you that in a minute. So you can see I've used my tool to create some indented or subtracted texture, and now I'm creating additive texture, right, the pop-ups. So here I need to smooth. I'm grabbing a paintbrush and I'm getting it a little wet. I dip it in water and then I blot off the extra water. That's important so that I don't oversaturate. Adding too much water at this stage will actually eat away and dissolve my clay. So now I can smooth all those little score lines around the piece because I don't want to see them. You really need to make sure that you do that at this stage because it's hard to do later. It doesn't mean you have to create a smooth surface, but all texture that you add should be intentional. So like I said, clean up any of those undesired marks because it's really difficult to smooth clay. You usually don't have the proper tools at home to smooth it after it's fired. Now, say for instance, I want to have these scoring lines, right? I could actually cover an entire area first with score lines. So if I like that, here I go, adding a bunch of score lines in an area. And that way it becomes more cohesive and part of my design, right? Now, I'll still probably need to score and slip, definitely need to slip and probably score, especially if I'm coming back to this another day. So don't assume that just because you scored it once that you're kind of done doing that. This is more like a design layer, and then I add my structural scoring marks later. Be careful to think about how you need to hold this as you add more detail so you don't smush it or blend it. Pay attention to how you hold it and where you hold it. If you're adding a lot of little bits, you might make a lot of pieces to kind of grab from like I've done right here. Just don't make so many that you don't get to them within like maybe 30 minutes or so because they'll start to dry out because they're so small. Now don't forget to use your needle tool to poke a hole in the bottom for any air inside to escape. This is critical. So I have a general idea of where I'm putting everything, but I'm not like 100% married to it. So I'm going to really look at my piece from multiple angles and check my work to make sure I'm not forgetting an area or something's looking strange from one end that I didn't see. So I will hold it away from me. I might put it down and walk away. I'll change the angles, right? And so then that allows me to kind of respond as I go to kind of my designs. Now, we're done for the day. You need to check, do I need to rehydrate it? I need to first see, is it feeling really, really dry? In which case I might blot it with a little bit of water on my sponge or even just from my hands. You could also use your spray bottle. Spray from a distance so that you're not soaking it in one area. Which brings me to the next part, which is do not oversaturate your clay. That means, leaving a puddle like I just did there. That will eat away at your clay and eventually it will fall apart. If that happens, use a sponge or even a towel to just gently blot off, making sure you don't smear your designs. All right, so when I'm done, I've added a little water if I need to. If it's super humid out, you probably don't need to. So I'm gonna take my piece and put it in my plastic bag. I've made sure that there's not any big wet spots. And if I wanna keep it damp, I'm gonna wrap it tightly. Make sure you don't smush any details. And if I want it to dry a little, I might wrap it loosely, still closing up my bag with the weight of the clay.